I hope your SEBI Grade A preparation is going very well. This video is very important for all who are preparing for SEBI Grade A 2020 and also for those preparing for RBI Grade B 2020. And if you have a keen interest in finance and capital markets, you can watch it. Otherwise, you can skip it. So let's get right to it. Join my Telegram channel to stay connected with important PDFs, links and other information regarding bank exam preparation. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and share it with your friends so that everybody can get access to this information. And if you are new here, my mission is to empower you with the tools you need to get success in all kinds of competitive examinations. So if you want to join me in this journey, please click on the subscribe button and also do not forget to click the bell icon so that you, my friend, do not miss any future update. Let us begin with this video. Hi, this is Supriyo. Welcome to SEBI Current Affairs for the month of April 2020. Now I know that it's been a long time since we have done these, so I want to tell you something that we have seen a lot of changes, lot of different things have happened. Now I want you to understand that all the important dates that you might have read. So there are a lot of dates involved because during the lockdown there have been certain changes that have been put into place by SEBI. So it's not important for you to remember all the dates of all the things that had happened. Just remember what are the important things that are always staying the same. So don't always think about the minute changes that are being done from day to day. Just remember that there is an overall framework under which we have to actually study all of these things. So if you have any questions regarding all of these things, feel free to let me know. Let us just jump in and we can discuss that going forward. So point number one, to reduce the FPI outflows, SEBI has changed the category 1 registration norms. So what is this? This is the foreign portfolio investment, and so SEBI, they have actually changed the category 1 registration norms. Now you will remember that in 2019 what SEBI had announced was earlier in the FPI registrations we used to have category 1, category 2 and category 3, but now they have actually rationalized this and now it is down to category 1 and category 2. Now these were actually done on the basis of recommendations of the H.R. Khan committee, and they have tried to actually deepen the bond markets and they have tried to liberalize things a little bit. So the category 1 and category 2, just make sure you read all about that and what are the things that are involved. So I'll not go into depth about those. So what is the amendment that has been done? So they have amended the FPI regulations to allow funds from any country specified by the central government by an order or agreement or treaty with other sovereign government to be eligible for category 1 registration. So what is this saying? This is basically saying that the central government, whatever a treaty or agreement or order it has with some other government regarding that treaty, what SEBI can do, SEBI can then make those companies from that government become eligible for category 1 registration. Now this is a great relaxation, and just note that this has been done because we are having a lot of FPI outflow because of the pandemic and the situation. That is why SEBI wanted that we should have some strong rules in place so that these people, they can be categorized as category 1. So category 1 means that the regulations are very strong and it's very easy to actually comply with the category 1 registration. So that is why they are trying to bring as many companies as they can into category 1. Now some countries like Mauritius and a few others, they aren't a part of the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. Now remember that Mauritius, if you recollect, it has been determined under the grey list of the FATF. So these countries, some of them, they are not compliant fully with the FATF, but even these countries now we are allowing them to actually obtain the category 1 FPI license. So we are liberalizing these things because the government wants more FPI inflow. So due to the pandemic, foreign funds were liquidating their Indian investments. As I told you that we were having a lot of outflows. So to stop that, government is doing this. And FPI investments from Mauritius last year were 4.37 trillion rupees. So it was the second largest FPI investment that we had in India, 4.37 trillion rupees. You can remember this figure if you want, so that just you can answer any question if it is formed like that. So let us move to number 2. SEBI's TAC ensured business continuity during lockdown to keep the markets online. So what is the TAC? It is the Technical Advisory Committee. So this is the committee that has ensured that all the market activities, they are going on as smoothly as possible, so that we do not have any kind of disruption in our capital markets due to the lockdown. And as you know that the stock market has been operating very normally, so we did not see any kind of disruption in the stock market, and that is mainly thanks to SEBI's TAC. Now SEBI, they had in 2019 announced a BCP and DR for the market infrastructure institutions, the MIIs. So BCP, what does it stand for? It stands for Business Continuity Plan, and DR, it stands for Disaster Recovery. Now those of you who are working in IT, you will already be knowing all of these terms. So basically, just to give a short snippet of this, so BCP and DR, these are your operational continuity activities. So if something happens to your main operational center, then using the business continuity plan and the disaster recovery sites, you can have your operation shifted seamlessly to another different location where those problems have not occurred, and your business will be continuing without any kind of disruption. So that is the usage of the BCP and the DR, that we will be having full continuity in our services. Now SEBI's DR sites, they are checked every 6 months, so make a note of that. Every 6 months you have to have it checked, and people were actually not very happy with that because they felt that it was unnecessary, but now they are understanding that BCP and DR, they are very important and integral things to the perfect operation of the markets. Now NSE, they have used a DR site in Chennai, and BSE, they have done the same in the DR site in Hyderabad. And just remember the name of the MD and the CEO of both NSE and BSE, because they were in the news and a lot was written about them. So NSE's chairman, it is Vikram Limaye, he is the MD and the Chief Executive Officer, and BSE's MD and CEO, he is Ashish Chauhan. So Vikram Limaye and Ashish Chauhan, just remember both of these names. Now let us move to number 3. Bank of India AXA Mutual Fund introduced side pocketing in its debt and equity schemes. Now this is very important, the side pocketing scheme. So what is this all about? Now they have actually introduced it as a part of their debt and equity schemes. So SEBI, they had earlier approved the side pocketing so that fund houses can separate a part of a portfolio involved in troubled debt. So for example, what might happen, usually this is done for your liquid portfolio. So in your debt segment, it is usually done, but sometimes it carries over to the equity segments as well. So what happens is that if you have say for example a kind of debt that is going bad, so the debt holder is not able to repay, then what happens, your investments there are getting stuck, right? So you cannot actually get the money out of there. So what you are doing, you are classifying all of those bad debts, whatever the things are there which have a doubtful recovery, into a separate section of your entire portfolio, and that is what is side pocketing. So side pocketing means that you are just shifting that to a separate portfolio inside that main portfolio that you have, so that you can segregate the funds. So remember that only existing investors, they are allotted units in the segregated portfolio, and they will all get a 30-day exit window without exit load if this is actually started. So any fund house, whenever they are starting this side pocketing scheme, they have to give all the investors a 30-day exit window without any kind of exit load. So they just say that if you are unhappy with this, then you can leave within 30 days at no cost, and investors can exit from the remaining portion of the debt without affecting chances of benefiting from debt recoveries, if any. So the redemptions, they go down. So what this means, basically this means that okay, if the portfolio, it has a side pocket, so what happens is the other part of the portfolio is clean, right? So it is in the green. So what can happen if you are redeeming that part of the portfolio? There is no issue. So that part of the portfolio, it is working seamlessly. Now the bad part, whatever is there, it is actually held in a separate pocket. Your money, it is just segregated, and entire money that you have poured in that fund, that is not wasted. So the good part is separated and the bad part is separated. This actually just ensures that people do not go for redemptions, because they feel that okay, part of my money is safe and the other part I will bear a little loss if required, or I will be waiting a little longer and then if there is any debt recovery, I will be benefiting from that as well. So it is kind of a best of both worlds, and that is why SEBI has said that any fund house that wants to go forward with that, they are okay with it. And it is, as I told you, mostly used in debt portfolios, and it stabilizes the net asset value. So any kind of just jumps, volatility in the net asset value, it can be avoided, because once you have done this, the redemptions are going down, right? The investors, they feel that okay, my money is secure, I don't need to redeem, and that is why the NAV, the fluctuations of the NAV, it is actually reduced. So coming to number 4, FinMin, Finance Ministry, raises concerns after People's Bank of China increases its stake in HDFC. Now, what is the PBOC? Do you know that? It is the Central Bank of China, People's Bank of China. So, HDFC, this is what? This is actually Housing Development Finance Corporation Limited. So, this is the mortgage lender. This is not the HDFC Bank. This is the mortgage lender that we are talking about, the India's largest mortgage lender actually. And HDFC, they have informed the stock exchanges about People's Bank of China raising its stake from 0.8% to 1.01%. Now, you will also get the number of shares in the news listing, but it's not important. Just remember the percentage that the People's Bank of China, their investment in HDFC, it has gone above 1%. So it's now 1.01%, and the government is unhappy. Now, the thing is that there were no laws that were broken, and the disclosure was mandatory because of the breach of the 1% threshold. So this is very interesting that just because they have more than 1%, that is why HDFC disclosed. Otherwise, the disclosure also would not have been mandatory. So you can understand, like China, they try and get a hold of the things, and they keep their investments on the down low. They do not let everybody understand. Now, I have made a full video on the boycott China thing, and I have talked a lot about these things, and maybe a lot of you have already seen that video. You would be shocked as to how many things they are doing under the table. It's a quite informative video, although it is not useful for your preparation, but if you know these things, it's quite good, because in the interview these kinds of questions may appear about China's role in investment into India. Now, usually central banks, they will be buying the debt of highly rated companies, but taking equity stakes is quite unusual. So that is why government was really worried that why is PBOC suddenly taking equity stake, because usually they will only be buying bonds, right? And so the finance ministry questioned SEBI over why no red flags were raised. So they asked SEBI that why you have not raised any kind of red flags, and willy-nilly they could just go and invest. So this brings us to number 5. SEBI has informed the custodians to disclose all Chinese investments in stock markets. Now, you can very well understand that they had a lot of pressure from the government because of the Chinese things that is happening, and this actually happened before the Galwan Valley incident took place. So you can understand after it happened how much pressure SEBI had from the government regarding these things. So government asked SEBI to increase scrutiny of investments coming from China and Hong Kong. So any investments, the beneficial owner, so any kind of FPIs, any kind of companies who are investing in India, they have a beneficial owner, the BO. So the beneficial owner, if it is determined to be from a country like China or Hong Kong, then you have to have some additional just safeguards in place. That is what the government is telling SEBI. So new FPIs and existing investments, both are covered. 16 Chinese FPIs are registered in India with their total investment at $1.1 billion in top tier stocks, and 15 of these are category 1 FPIs, and only one is a category 2 FPI. So this is the exact numbers that you need to remember. And SEBI and the depositories disclosed only top 10 jurisdictions investing in India. China is not one of them. So you can see why the Chinese investment was not getting disclosed, because they are not one of the top 10 jurisdictions that are investing in India. So coming to number 6, SEBI eases compliance rules for the demand requests and KYC applications. Now, as I told you, the dates are not that important. Just remember that demat request forms that are processed by issuer or the RTA, they must be done within 15 days, and the same processed by depository participants, DPs, must be done within 7 days. And the KYC documents, they are to be uploaded on the systems of KRA, KYC Registration Agency, within 10 working days. Now, these are the things which are normally done. So this 15 day, 7 day and 10 day that you are seeing, these are the normal timelines. So both all of these timelines that you can see, they are all getting eased due to the pandemic, and this is just SEBI's relaxation that they wanted to offer to all of the companies. Now coming to number 7, Now, before we move to number 7, remember that all these current affairs that I am talking to you about, you need to watch the other ones that I have done too. So I have a full playlist on the SEBI current affairs from January 2020 till date. So till this video, April 2020 I have done. Now remember another thing, that you should be starting your preparation from January 2020. It's a very different kind of year and you cannot take any chances with your preparation. So I would advise that study from January itself, and if you need a total plan, a 60-day plan for the SEBI Grade A 2020 examination, then also I have another video which I have made specifically to teach you how you are going to structure your time. So you can go check that out if you want, and you will get a full plan for the SEBI Grade A examination. Now let's come to number 7. So point number 7, we have Finance Ministry notifies FDI policy changes with eye on Chinese investments. So as you can understand, all these things, it is happening. Why? It is happening after the People's Bank of China took the HDFC stake. So this is the crux of the thing. So that 1%, above 1% now the PBOC owns in HDFC. This has actually caused a domino effect, and all these things are happening on the backdrop of that event. And so prior government approval now needs to be taken. It's now mandatory for all the FDI coming from countries that are sharing India's borders. So this is very interesting. Just see the definition, the countries that are sharing India's borders. So the government is very clear. Any kind of FDI, if it comes from any place, any company which has the beneficial owner as a person who is resident in the countries that are sharing India's borders, then you need to have a prior approval taken. Now remember, before this there was no need for a prior approval. There were some sectoral caps on the FDI, but no prior approval was needed. So this was a very important change in the FDI policy by the government this year. So to prevent hostile takeovers of Indian companies whose market values have taken a severe hit. Now this is the official reason that was given by the government, that they are trying to prevent any hostile takeovers, because all the market values, they are now very low because of the lockdown, whatever is happening. And DPIIT, they have actually announced it under FEMA 1999. Now what is FEMA? It is the Foreign Exchange Management Act. So it's the act that actually administers all of these FDI policies. And also remember, what is the DPIIT? It's a very important body, so you must understand the full form. It is the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Now DPIIT, it comes under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And just note another thing, that all these things, all these extra steps for the approval of any FDI, these were earlier applicable to only Pakistan and Bangladesh. So these were the two countries which were earlier included, and now a lot more countries have been included. Now also remember that there is a lot of complication when we come to China, because there are regions like Hong Kong and Macau which are actually special administrative regions. So SAR, that is what they are called, and these regions, they have separate laws, they have all separate kind of things for investment purposes, and that is why India must be very, very careful, and they are trading all of these things carefully so that Chinese investment, Chinese hostile investment into India can be avoided. That is the need of the hour. Let's go to number 8. MCX, Multi Commodities Exchange, sets 1 rupee as the bottom provisional price in April for 1 barrel of crude oil in India. Now this is very interesting, that this was the provisional price that they had put. Now why this was done? This was done because the trading platform does not allow traders to put negative price quotes. Now remember that crude oil futures in the United States, they had closed at a historic low of negative minus $37.63. Now I have made a full video on this, so go check it out. It's a very important video for all SEBI Grade A aspirants, so make sure that you just see all of those things, because I have talked about derivatives like futures, forwards, options, swaps, everything I have discussed in one video itself, so you'll get a comprehensive idea. And because these things had actually happened, that is why negative price territory we had reached, and because the trading platform MCX does not support the negative price, that is why they had put it as rupee 1. Now this was the first time since 1980s when such a thing was done, and the final price, it was actually calculated as minus 2,884 rupees per barrel. Now you can understand this has caused a lot of loss to many of the traders, and because of this, it is no wonder that when we come to number 9, yes, brokerages, they have moved the High Court against the multi commodity exchanges settlement price of minus 2
2884 rupees a barrel. Now this figure, it is very important, and in the last point, the figure that we discussed, this figure minus 37.63, this is also very important. So make sure that both of these figures you are remembering, and so here it is minus 2884 rupees a barrel. Now crude oil contracts on the MCX, they reflect the NYMEX prices. So what is the NYMEX? It is the New York Mercantile Exchange. So NYMEX prices, they are actually reflected on the MCX, the crude oil contracts. And the interesting thing that had happened was that the Indian commodity markets, they had been closed for trading at 5 p.m. So local traders were unable to exit their positions, while the US prices plunged to minus 37.63 later in the night. So this is the price they had plunged to, and the traders which had actually invested the money, they were not able to extract that money. Now remember, we have actually also discussed about this, that the timing, it was actually restricted from 10:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. I have discussed this in one of my earlier current affairs videos, and this is the reason that was actually stated by these brokerages, that if you had given us time until 10:30, then we could have exited our positions, because till that time the NYMEX index, it was in the green territory, it was positive. But because they did not get that time, since the exchange was already closed by 5 p.m., that is why a lot of loss was actually caused to all of these people. And Motilal Oswal, Religare Securities and PCS Securities, these are the three brokerages which have jointly moved the Bombay High Court against the MCX. Now the latest news is that it was a stay order was actually given, so none of their concerns were actually given any merit. Now let's move to number 10. SEBI relaxes fundraising norms for share sales and rights issues. What have they done? So they have extended the approval period of the IPOs by 6 months beyond 1 year. So usually what happens, that when your IPO is approved, within 1 year you are supposed to actually go out with your IPO, but because of the circumstances that are going on right now, by 6 months they have actually been extended right now. And even the companies can tweak the IPO's fresh issue component up to 50% of estimated issue size without refiling. So no need to refile if you are just tweaking up to 50% of the issue size. And rights issue allowed for companies listing for 18 months. So the rights issue, earlier a longer time frame was needed for a listed company to remain listed before they could go for a rights issue. But right now, a company that is listed for just 18 months, they can go for a rights issue. And the average MCAP, that has also been relaxed to 100 crore rupees from the normal 250 crore rupees that earlier used to be needed. And the minimum subscription required for rights issue to be considered successful has been relaxed to 75% from 90%. So usually the rights issue, for it to be considered successful, you need to actually subscribe to 90%, but now 75% is the threshold. And who is this for? This is for issues opening before 31st December only. So that is the deadline, and till then you are getting all of these relaxations. Now SEBI proposes relaxing norms for investing in stressed companies. This is another thing that SEBI is looking at, but it has not been actually enacted yet. They are looking at it. So there has been a discussion paper on this, and investors which are buying greater than 26% in any listed company need to make a public offer for all shareholders. SEBI seeks to waive this open offer. So we already talked about open offers. So because the open offer needs to be made, it is a considerable financial investment, and SEBI is saying that this open offer, now they are trying to waive that open offer. And preferential shares are sold at the average of the last 26 weeks share price. So the last 26 weeks share price, it is actually averaged, and based on that the preferential shares are sold. But now you can understand there would be a lot of fluctuation, right? Because the prices have been going up and down during the lockdown a lot, and that is why it has been decided to reduce it to 2 weeks. From 26 weeks average, it will be now 2 weeks average, and it will apply to investors who infuse large amounts in stressed companies. So the people who are buying the shares of the stressed companies, they are the persons who are actually going to get the benefit out of this. And let's move to number 12. SEBI eased valuation policies for debt mutual funds affected by the pandemic. So if there is any delay in the payment of interest or extension in maturity is due to the lockdown, it won't be termed as a default. So this is a very interesting thing, because this actually, it was influenced by the 3-month moratorium or deferment on payments by the RBI. So we all know that the Reserve Bank of India, they have decided to put a 3-month moratorium on all the loan repayments, and SEBI also had a lot of pressure from the market participants that they wanted something similar. So now SEBI has also gone forward and given this. So this is a big relief for the asset management companies and also for the credit rating agencies. Now why is this? Because as you could understand that the credit rating agencies, they have received a lot of flack recently because they did not have the correct ratings for the companies that have actually defaulted, and that is why now SEBI is correcting all of these things, and the CRAs, they can get some relaxation and they won't be held accountable because of some ratings that they have given. Now coming to number 13, okay, this is very important and very interesting, and perhaps the most important thing of this session. Franklin Templeton shuts down 6 debt fund schemes post illiquidity and redemptions. Now this is very interesting to understand, and I had initially thought of making a single video on the Franklin Templeton issue, but I don't think there's enough time for that, and I'll just give you a brief here in this video itself. So what have they said? They have said that there is a lack of liquidity in the debt markets and unprecedented redemptions in yield oriented schemes. So one thing that you need to remember is that the asset under management was 25,000 crore rupees. So the Franklin Templeton schemes, 6 schemes, they have actually closed down. So they are trying to wind down these schemes, and the total asset under management was above 25,000 crore. Now they are saying that there were a lot of unprecedented redemptions. Now why is this? That suddenly, why did the redemptions go up? Now there are 3 main reasons because of which the redemptions have gone up. So I'll take you through the reasons. The first reason is because of the Vodafone Idea, the AGR case. We already talked about it in one of my previous videos, so you can find it on my channel. So basically, because they did not get a waiver from the Supreme Court, now what happened was that Franklin Templeton, they used to have some bonds of the Vodafone and Idea. Now because they are having to pay so much high fines because of the AGR case, they of course won't be able to make the repayments on the bonds. So the money that was actually invested in those bonds, they are not going to get back. So that is one kind of problem that they are facing. Now the second problem, Franklin Templeton, they had invested a lot into the ILFS as well. So when ILFS went down, we have talked a lot about the ILFS crisis. Because of that crisis, Franklin Templeton was already having a lot of issues. So now, because of all of the extra issues, these things were actually flaring up. And another place, the third place where Franklin Templeton had a lot of money, it was in Yes Bank. Now we all know about what's happening with Yes Bank, the bonds of the Yes Bank. So you can understand all these companies' bonds were actually held by Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund in their debt portfolio. Understand this, that all these things, all these companies, now these companies were already having a lot of problems, and for a long time Franklin Templeton was losing value. The net asset value was actually getting impacted because of these things. And what happens whenever these kinds of issues will actually start happening, all the intelligent investors, all the institutional investors, the people, the HNIs, they will first of all understand all of these things, because the common people like you and me, we will not be understanding all these issues, but they are going to get the latest information about these things. So those big investors, they started to pull out their money. Now what will happen? You are a mutual fund, just think about it. When all the money is getting pulled out, you don't have any kind of cash just sitting around. You have some reserves, but that is not that much. Most of the money that you have taken from all of these people, you have put inside those funds in which you have invested, right? Now all those funds, they have their bonds from these companies which are having a lot of problems. Now this is a problem that Franklin Templeton made. They did not have the wise decision that you should just remove your money from those schemes, from those companies, the bonds of those companies. They continued to hold on, and that is why when the HNIs and the institutional investors came and demanded their money, so Franklin Templeton had to give them their money. And how did they actually give them? They cannot sell their bonds, they cannot just exit out of their bonds, right? So what they did, they actually had to pay out from their cash reserves, and lot of people were coming and demanding their money. And because of that, the unprecedented redemption, see, unprecedented redemptions, they have told, this is the reason why it happened, because people were feeling that my money is not safe, let me take out my money. And because of the lack of liquidity in the debt markets, all the low rated paper that the Franklin Templeton actually held, the low rated bonds, they could not sell also, because in India we do not have a good junk bond market. Now this is a problem that was actually highlighted by HR Khan committee, that we need to have a market for the junk bonds. Because we do not have that, Franklin Templeton was not able to exit out of these things, and now they had a weird situation. They could not pay back the money, and now they can't even sell their bonds. So what will they do? They just decided to shut down all of these 6 schemes, and because of the shutdown, now what is happening? Nobody can redeem any money. So whatever money is stuck now, when the bonds will mature, then they will get some money, and whatever asset sales will be happening, they will be getting some money. So in a proportional order, they are going to give all of the people who had invested. Now this is an event called a credit risk event. Now importantly, remember that if you have to attribute all the problems, these things happened because of credit risk. So remember always, whenever you are investing in a mutual fund, you need to be aware of the credit risk. So I did not have any investments, my investments in Franklin Templeton, because I knew about the credit risk thing that they are getting into, and these liquid funds, usually I try to avoid liquid funds, and these liquid funds that they had entered into, they had a lot of credit risk, underlying credit risk, that was not actually apparent. And if you are going into those funds just by seeing the returns, then you might be stung like the investors who just chased those high returns, and now they are having to pay the price. So think of this entire event as kind of a run on the banks. You know what a bank run means, right? When a lot of people want their money back. So this is a kind of run on the mutual funds. So because a lot of people wanted back their money, that is why this kind of a situation happened. The irony is that Franklin Templeton actually had faced a similar issue in 2016. In 2016, it was JSPL, Jindal Steel and Power Limited. So JSPL had defaulted on their bonds in 2016, and at that time Franklin Templeton had absorbed those effects. So basically they did not pass it on to the investors, but this time they are passing it on to the investors. So always the lesson is, whenever you are selecting funds, remember the credit risk that can happen, and so make sure that you have chosen funds which are not invested in those junk bonds or low quality paper. Now what will be happening now? Assets will be sold, as I told you, and the sale and cash flows, it will be distributed in an equitable manner by Kotak Mahindra Bank Limited. So they have been appointed, this bank has been appointed to oversee all of these things. And who has appointed Kotak Mahindra Bank? It is appointed by the trustees of those schemes. So remember that like companies and banks, they have board of management. In the mutual funds, they have the mutual fund trustees. So trustees have actually done this. And the 6 schemes, so they were yield oriented liquid schemes which were shut down. So these are Franklin India Low Duration Fund, Dynamic Accrual Fund, Credit Risk Fund, Short Term Income Plan, Ultra Short Bond Fund, and Income Opportunities Fund. So now I hope that you got an idea about the Franklin Templeton case, and if you have any doubts, let me know if you have any problems. And coming to number 14, so ANMI, they have sought SEBI intervention in Franklin Mutual Fund fiasco. So what is the ANMI? It is the Association of National Exchange Members of India, a brokers industry body. So they have sought help from the Ministry of Finance and the Securities and Exchange Board of India, and other mutual funds. They are facing redemption pressure, and the systemic implications of liquidity have arisen because of this event. So whenever this kind of an event happens, people all say mutual funds बेकार है, उसमें से तो निकल जाना चाहिए, फालतू का कोई रिटर्न नहीं मिलता है. These things are very negative, and people say this because they don't have an idea. If you choose your mutual funds well, then you do not need to worry. So this is the issue that is happening, and ANMI, they want an expert panel should be looking into FTMF, which is the Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund, and they should actually just ensure that the investors get as much money as they can. So the total mutual fund asset under management, remember this figure, it is over 25 lakh crore rupees. Actually it was around 27 lakh crore rupees, but because of the lockdown and all the things, the lot of money has actually fallen. So now it is around 25 lakh crore. So that is the total mutual fund assets under management. Now let's move to number 15. SEBI has reduced broker turnover fees and filing charges for draft papers. So again, relief given by SEBI. So broker turnover fee, it will be reduced to 50% of existing fee structure, and investors will benefit. So the benefit, it will be passed on to the investors, and the filing fees on offer documents for public issue, rights issue and buybacks will be reduced to 50% of the existing fee structure. And the effective, this thing will be effective from June 1, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. So broker turnover fees and the filing charges, they are giving some relaxation on these two things. Coming to number 16, SEBI extends timeline for complying with limits on unlisted debt for mutual funds. Now the unlisted debt, they had actually put out a circular in October of 2019 whereby they had told, they had actually fixed the limits on the unlisted debt of the mutual funds. So by 31st March 2020 they had to lower it by 15% to 15%, and by 30th June 2020 they had to lower it to 10%. So these have now been extended. So right now by 30th September 2020 you have to lower it to 15%, and by 31st December 2020 you have to lower it to 10%. So this is the percentage, the maximum percentage that you can keep as unlisted debt in your scheme. And the older unlisted debt, it was grandfathered, and now they can transact in it. So what this grandfathered means is that earlier SEBI had said that the older debt you have to grandfather, so this means that you have to hold it until maturity, just hold it. But right now they are saying you can transact it as well, because you see that there is a lot of problem in the mutual fund industry. They want increase of liquidity, so they told that the old unlisted debt, you can go ahead and you can transact in it, you can trade in it, no problems. Coming to number 17, SEBI allows grandfathering of existing unlisted NCDs across mutual fund industry. Now this is a similar thing. NCDs is the non-convertible debentures. So mutual funds can invest in unlisted NCDs up to a maximum of 10% of debt portfolio of a scheme in a phased manner. So 10%, as I told you, that in a phased manner it has to be brought down to 10%. The old debt taken before October 2019 was grandfathered by SEBI, but now the SEBI has said that mutual funds can transact in those non-convertible debentures. So they have allowed these grandfathering things. And now coming to number 18, SEBI tightens scrutiny of debt funds, risk exposure and liquidity issues. So again, they are tightening the scrutiny of the liquid funds, and these funds, they must provide details of underlying securities, their ratings, maturities and tenures of the scheme to SEBI. So SEBI wants to avoid another Franklin Templeton episode. That's why they are doing these things. So SEBI is considering a limit on sectoral exposures in credit risk funds to ensure that they are more diversified. So what this will do, this will not allow the mutual funds to invest in one sector in a higher percentage. So there will be some limits that they have to follow, and daily data, they must be provided by the mutual funds to SEBI, and AMFI and SEBI, they are working together on it. So I have already discussed AMFI. It is the Association of Mutual Funds in India, and SEBI, both of them are working together to actually tighten the scrutiny. Now coming to the last item for today, SEBI eased compliance norms for liquid funds. So what is this? The liquid funds, they are going to be given till June 30th to comply with requirement of holding at least 20% of their assets in liquid assets like cash and government securities. So earlier SEBI had already announced this, but now they are given till June 30. They are just given some relaxation to comply with this, and they must submit the cyber security audit reports by August 31st, and the scheme annual reports for 2019-20, they have been extended till August 31. So again, these dates are not that much important. Just understand what's happening and what are the compliance things that SEBI is actually talking about, how they are relaxing these things so that the markets can run without any kind of interruption. So I hope that you learned something from this video and that it was beneficial to you. If you like this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends, and please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more of these kinds of content, and remember to ring on the bell icon so that you, my friend, do not miss any future update. And if you have any suggestions, any improvements or any clarifications that you need, feel free to write me in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.